So let's get you the live visuals coming in of India's big tech moment in France. The inauguration of Bharat Innovates is going to happen shortly, as any moment now Prime Minister Modi will be unveiling it. And of course, all eyes are also going to be on the meeting between the French President Emmanuel Macron and Prime Minister Modi. The Prime Minister is in France for a high-impact diplomatic engagement. He is in the French city of Nice, where the key thrust of the visit will be tech and innovation. The Prime Minister, alongside Macron, will inaugurate the Bharat Innovates event that brings together top innovation startups from India, France and the world. More than 120 Indian companies and startups and prominent business leaders from France and other countries are expected to participate in the event that is being held during the India-France Year of Innovation. The Prime Minister will hold a bilateral summit with President Macron, the first since the elevation of ties to a special global strategic partnership. Now, on the 18th, in Paris, alongside Macron, the Prime Minister will also be attending the Viva Tech Summit, Europe's largest technology and startup event. Let's go across straight to Managing Editor Zakir Jacob, joining us on the broadcast. He's joining us live from France with the details of what's happening. We're looking at the live visuals coming in. At any moment now, Prime Minister Modi is all set for the inauguration of the event.
Correct. Both Prime Minister Modi and President Macron of France will be delivering the opening comments. Bharat Innovates is part of the India-France Year of Innovation. This was announced when President Macron was in India earlier this year as part of the AI Impact Summit. Remember, last year, France had held the inaugural AI Summit, and as a follow-up, India held the second AI Summit in 2026 earlier this year, for which President Macron had also arrived. Remember, there's a large number of innovators and startups, unicorns, over 100 companies. Indian companies will be showcasing themselves and their wares at the Bharat Innovates. In addition to this, there's also another technology event for which the Prime Minister will come back. That'll be on Thursday, which will try and connect venture capitalists with big tech entrepreneurs and startups. So a big thrust of this relationship is on the technology part. Bharat Innovates is one element or one way of sort of expanding the technology cooperation between India and France. But there are a number of other areas as well, and they will discuss that in the bilateral meeting, which will happen later on this afternoon here in France, in Nice, which is in. So when it comes to spacecraft exploration, when it comes to aircraft maintenance and spare parts, you've seen defense cooperation, you've seen from the Rafale fighter jets to the Scorpion submarines, a whole range of areas in defense tech, and critical minerals again is emerging as a very important domain for countries around the world. So all of this will come up when Prime Minister Modi and President Macron sit down for their bilateral right after the inauguration of Bharat Innovates. Like I said, there are two major tech events that the Prime Minister will be part of in his time here in France. One is happening right now, Bharat Innovates. It's a technology summit where over 100 Indian startups, unicorns, and technology companies are coming to France and will be showcasing their skills and their wares. And then the Prime Minister will come back to France again on Thursday for a venture capitalist event where venture capitalists and big tech entrepreneurs will be meeting startups. So there are two tech events that the Prime Minister will be part of in his time in France. He's also, of course, going to be part of the G7 meeting that is going to happen on Monday and Tuesday, for which the world leaders will be arriving, including the President of the United States, Donald Trump, as well as other world leaders will be part of that G7 meeting as well. And India is attending the G7 this time as an outreach partner. The Prime Minister has attended G7 previously also in Biarritz in France, and last year in Italy, and now, of course, this time in Evian in France. So all of this, it's going to be an action-packed sort of itinerary as far as the Prime Minister is concerned over the next 3 or 4 days that he's going to be here in France, as well as, of course, one day he will be going to Slovakia tomorrow for the first ever visit, the first time ever an Indian Prime Minister will be visiting Slovakia. So it's going to be an action-packed 4 or 5 days for the Prime Minister in this multi-nation trip that he's undertaking currently.
Yes, and you mentioned why this is going to be very important, why this is India's tech moment. The timing of it is also very interesting. There are many global challenges, geopolitical challenges, and also it comes within hours of the US ordering Anthropic to disable the AI models for all foreign nationals. So there has been a lot of concern around the world. So this is India's moment to show to the world, to showcase to the world that we are capable of deep tech.
Yeah, I think the Anthropic episode sort of highlights why countries now need to start taking tech sovereignty very seriously. All of a sudden, one of the most frontline, cutting edge AI companies in the world has been told by the US government not to allow two of their models to be accessed by any foreign national. Now, tomorrow they can do this with OpenAI, they can do this with any other AI company that are coming out of California. So I think this is, again, a critical thing that will be discussed today between the Prime Minister and President Macron. Remember, President Macron was at the forefront of, adoption of AI for all, recognizing that AI was a fundamentally life-changing technology, and which is why France hosted the first ever AI summit last year, and Prime Minister had come for that summit. And reciprocally, this year when India hosted the AI Impact Summit, we had President Macron arriving as one of the guests for that event. So I think AI will be talked about a lot. Tech sovereignty will be talked about a lot, and there is also this impression, some big ticket venture capitalists have made this point that one of the reasons why the Indian stock markets seem to be flat while the US stock markets, the South Korean stock markets, etc., are gaining is also because of the fact that there seems to be an impression that India does not have a major AI play, that it's still an IT/IT services dependent sort of country or economy, and there's no major AI play. So I think this will again be an opportunity for Indian AI companies to sort of showcase their wares, to appeal to big ticket venture capitalists as well as private equity funds for further infusion of capital. Remember, these AI companies require large data centers, large GCCs, which have to be funded. So a lot of that funding will also have to come from private players. Yes, of course, government can clear the way by easing up the regulatory hurdles. But at the end of the day, the capital infusion, a large part of it has to come from big tech companies, either based in the US or big venture capitalists or private equity firms. So all of that is an opportunity for India. And I think the Anthropic episode is also a wake-up call for a lot of countries about data sovereignty, about tech sovereignty. And it's something that both India and France find common ground in.
All right, Zaka, we'll come back to you in just a moment. Let's take a look at these live visuals that are coming in. The Prime Minister has arrived there. He is also interacting with the staff there. Bharat Innovates 2026 is a high-profile technology and startup conclave being held in Nice. It's jointly inaugurated by the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, and the French President, Emmanuel Macron. The three-day event is going to serve as a premier international accelerator for India's rapidly growing tech sector. And it is being organized under the official India-France Year of Innovation, which the two leaders had also kicked off in Mumbai earlier this year. The initiative is an effort to pivot the Indo-French alliance into the future by connecting India's intellectual capital with the European industry. So the core objective is to also, of course, move beyond IT support to show the capabilities that India has. So the Prime Minister, alongside the President, inaugurating the Bharat Innovates event that brings together top innovation startups from India, France, and the world. There are more than 120 Indian companies and startups and prominent business leaders from France and other countries expected to participate in the event that is being held during the India-France Year of Innovation. And remember, France has been a very steady partner of India. At a time of so many global challenges, India and France have now moved to strategic partnership. So France has stood with India in its good and bad times. The Prime Minister is also going to be holding a bilateral summit with the President Macron. This is the first since the elevation of ties to a special global strategic partnership. On the 18th of June in Paris, alongside Macron, the Prime Minister will also be attending Europe's largest technology and startup event. So there is a lot to look forward to. And of course, there is also the G7 meeting that the Prime Minister will be attending. and the meeting that's expected with the Prime Minister as well as the US President Donald Trump. And remember, this is also going to be the first face-to-face meeting between the two leaders in over a year. Zaka Jacob back with us. And Zaka, after this meeting, after this engagement with the French president, all eyes will also be on the meeting with the US President Donald Trump.
That's right. That's going to be likely on Wednesday afternoon, local time here in France. So that is going to be an important one because this is the first time that Prime Minister Modi and President Trump will be meeting since February of 2025. That's the first time that they met after Trump got re-elected for a second term. So this will be only the second time that they will be meeting. They have not met in the last more than a year now. And a lot has happened in the bilateral relationship. Of course, the latest being the killing of the 3 Indian sailors. There's been a lot of outrage about it in the country as well as on social media, and also the sort of lack of sensitivity when it comes to the statement that was put out by the US State Department saying that, all ships are expected to comply with the rules and the blockade is in place, and any ship that violates the blockade will be acted upon legally and consequentially. That didn't quite go down well in India. At the end of the day, India has been a long-term strategic partner of the United States. For the last 25 years, both countries have had a strategic partnership. India rolled out the red carpet recently for Marco Rubio. Last time when President Trump, in his first term, when he came to Ahmedabad, again, the stadium, the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad was filled. Both of these protagonists, both of these individuals have a famed friendship, and yet it's a friendly country whose fire killed those 3 Indian sailors. There has been justifiably quite a bit of outrage around it, and this will be one of the issues that will be taken up when the President and the Prime Minister meet. That's going to be on Wednesday in Evian in northern France. But it's not just about the sailors also. There are other niggling issues. Remember, an interim trade arrangement has still not been arrived at. India is one of the major countries that America has still not worked up a trade agreement with. There is also the question of, what the tariff rate will be. Will it be 18%? Will it be 10% now under this new Section 301 that the U.S. Commerce Department is threatening to put on Indian companies? So that, again, is going to be one of the big areas of divergence which needs to be resolved and which will be touched upon when the Prime Minister and the President meet. In addition to which, the Prime Minister will also likely have other bilateral meetings with leaders of the G7 countries, including the leader of Canada, the leaders of France. Of course, he will be having the bilateral later this afternoon with President Macron, but other leaders of this Western bloc, G7. And like you said, it comes at a critical geopolitical moment because this war has been going on for over 100 days, and countries like India and other countries in Asia have been at the receiving end of it, not just because of the stunted oil flows, but more importantly, just now in the recent last few days, the killing of Indian seafarers. That, I think, has brought the war closer home. India has been a consistent advocate that the war needs to stop, and both the warring parties need to get to the negotiating table. Therefore, there is a lot of expectation in India that this peace deal that Trump has been teasing for the last 2 or 3 days, finally there will be a virtual signing agreement, virtual signing ceremony today between the Iranian and the American sides. That is the hope as far as India is concerned, because India, like other countries which are dependent on the Strait of Hormuz for a transit of oil, are really, really hoping that this war comes to a conclusion as soon as possible so that we can get the shipping and the transit through the Strait of Hormuz back to normal, back to how it used to be prior to the 28th of February when America and Israel launched this war on Iran.
Okay, all right. Zaka, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. We continue coming back to you for those updates from France. For now, slipping into a very short break here, viewers. We'll be right back. Stay with us.